Did you get the thing?
Yes, I got the thing.
Feed the dog?
Yes, I fed the dog.
Did you download the episode?
Yes, I downloaded the episode. What's up with the questions? Can we just go, please?
Permit me here and now to promise as a good comrade and a fellow artist that I will not report any of this, whatever it is, to the police.
Welcome to Abandoned Albums, the documentary podcast. Each week, our intrepid group of researchers and archivists sift through the album crates of the world, finding those records that may have been lost over time. Our team also seeks out up-and-coming artists with work we feel you should know about. When we're lucky enough, the artists swing by Thunderlove Studio to chat with our hosts Keith R. Higgins and Jeff Calhoun about those albums and their careers as a whole. Sit back, relax, and thank you for joining us.
Hey, Keith.
Hey, Jeff.
That's a strong open for a podcast. Hey.
What's up?
How's it going? This is going to be a really good episode.
I wouldn't have pegged you as a ska fan.
Yeah, I like enough ska to say that I am a fan. It does seem a polarizing genre in that I think there are a good many people that feel like ska is one of those genres that you should only listen to that thing. Like, you should be a ska fan, and like there's almost a myopic approach. But when it's good, it's really enjoyable. Let's get to Karina and what I think is an incredible career. I think that this woman is a musician's musician. She's an incredible vocal talent. You know, this is, and if you had told me 2 years ago, hey, you're going to be talking to somebody from the band NoFX, I would have said you're full of it. But she's a touring member of NoFX. Mm-hmm. But my entry point was with Dancehall Crashers. And they found their sound in large part due to Karina and her partner in vocals, Elise. They had a two-female front that just delivered the goods, man. These two women sound so nice singing together. Dancehall Crashers was a tremendous band, and I think a lot of people saw the band No Doubt rise to fame and achieve superstardom. And I thought Dancehall Crashers were every bit as good, if not better, a band than No Doubt. I'm going to let Karina pronounce her last name because I'm going to butcher it.
I think it's Denike.
Denike. Karina Denike.
We'll find out.
Of Dancehall Crashers fame, let's get into it, man. Here's our conversation with Karina Denike.
It's just the normal noises in here.
Before we get started in earnest, so that I do not make an ass of myself and butcher it, would you pronounce your name for us, please?
Sure. Denike, like Denike. Denike. Does that work for you?
It does, and I'm assuming that we're not going to go with Karina, as it says on screen there.
Matt, thank you so much, because I'm like, oh, fuck, did I get the name wrong?
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was logging in really fast because I could. God, that's hilarious. I just logged in just now, just like really quick, so I just spelled it wrong. That's hilarious. Yes, I do know how to spell my own name.
So thank you, Karina, for joining us. Oh man.
Oh man, I'm sorry. Wow. Anyways, hi.
You're here. Hi. I'm trying to chart a path for our conversation that somehow gets us to, in the end, you on stage singing with no effects.
Mm-hmm.
But starting from, and I'm reading from your Bandcamp page here, where you describe yourself as a songstress, chanteuse, arranger, and songwriter who sings her way across many genres, whose original tunes are a haunting combination of 30s seaside shanties, 60s girl group harmony, and noir soundtracks. Now, Keith, I confess, I had to Google what chanteuse means.
Oh, really?
And found it to be very fitting.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
For sure.
Very, very fitting. So you've done a lot of jazz.
Mm-hmm.
You've been in ska bands, punk bands, just an incredible variety. Where did it start for you as a musician? Was Dance Hall Crashers like the first thing that brought you to the stage, or were you already performing?
I was already super into music. I mean, as a kid, I just gravitated towards it, right? Just I was in as many musical projects as I could be in, and I was doing a lot. My parents listened to a lot of music. Both my brothers were super into music, DJs, and just listening to a lot of ska and punk and everything else. A lot of reggae, a lot of toots, all kinds of great music in the house. And so I was just trying to sing as much as possible in choir or whatever I could do in school. And then I got into bands when I was about 15. So I was already singing a lot. And then at 18, my younger brother, was in the ska scene. So we're just a year apart. We're almost like twins kind of. And so he was already in the ska scene a little bit more in Berkeley. Like we grew up in England. So we grew up in kind of, and my older brother is 7 years older than me. So was a mod and a punk and into ska. And I got really into the Specials and Madness and a lot of, great, that whole scene, the two-tone scene in England in the 80s. So I was there when that was happening. So that was a big deal for us. But, like I said, I was listening to a lot of different kinds of music. So, and then got into the ska scene in California through that, going to Dance Hall Crashers needed a singer. My brother was friends with them. He's like, my sister sings. So that's how I sort of got into it in California. But as far as, I grew up on the Beatles and lots of new wave and Susie and the Banshees and Debbie Harry and all the 80s kind of, new wave and punk and ska stuff that was happening there. So, but, a lot of those great musicians take influence from so many things. Beatles were a huge fan. Like I said, I was a huge fan, Eurythmics. And then, of course, Billie Holiday and Ella Fitzgerald and Tina Turner and, a lot of soul singers. And so it's kind of, it can cross over a lot, obviously to me, and just crooners, just sort of just the art of singing to me was always really fascinating, and harmony. And I was like at age 3, my mom said she she had a party and people noticed that I was like singing all the Wailers parts when we were listening to Bob Marley. So I kind of always were just like drawn to like, what are the harmony parts? What is somebody singing that like is on the side? What are the three sections in that harmony part? So I guess I would say just kind of covering a lot of material from a young age, and then got really into the ska-punk scene from age 12. Like I was a rude girl in England, but then moving to the States, getting into it that way. So, I mean, I lived close to Gilman Street, which was a huge scene, So we were all friends with all those people, the Green Day guys and the Rancid guys in the early days, Operation Ivy. And I used to see Lint at warehouse parties. And before either of us were, well, he was in bands, but I was a little younger and I wasn't yet. And, it was a whole crew. Even though we weren't super buddies, we all knew each other,
It seems like when describing the Dancehall Crashers, you almost split it into eras. And it's, a lot of people mention Tim Armstrong's involvement with the start of the band, but to me, the start of the band really was you and Elise.
Yeah, I mean, there was another singer before me named Ingrid, and there were so many people in Dancehall Crashers. Like we have probably the largest amount of like ex-band members of any band. It's ridiculous. Like Andrew, I think even Andrew from Screw 32 was in it briefly. Yep. He was, and Joel Wing, our bass player, Eric Larson, like tons of like however many horn players we had. Jeremy Goody, who's a great engineer now. And then over the years, even, more T-Bone Willie, who's now was in Say Ferris and now is in Bite Me Bambi. And like, we've had all these band members, over the years. But, so I think that Elise and Ingrid was in the band before Elise even. I think it started with a sort of more trad sound, 3 horns, and it was called Dancehall Crashers, which was supposed to be sort of a little bit more trad ska stuff. And then it shifted a lot when her and I got together. So I think that's when, we sort of honed in on this very specific harmony sound.
It's absolutely signature. Is the band name, is it true that the band name was inspired by the Alton Ellis song? Yeah. Okay.
So that's kind of what I'm saying. Like the early days of it definitely didn't, there was some punk element to it. Of course, everybody was into that music too, but it was a little more trad ska. That was the the original members were really more into kind of trad ska stuff. So that was where the foundation kind of was coming from. I think that the addition of Elise and I, and then we eventually dropped the horns section, kind of shifted it a little bit, and we kind of went a little bit more of a heavy guitar sound and less keyboards. We didn't have keyboards anymore, things like that.
Was there anything driving that? I mean, to drop the horns from a band that is rooted in a 3-piece horn section, it's kind of a move, right? Like, was that something that was much talked about?
Yeah, there's a few reasons. I mean, one is like financially trying to tour with 9 band members is pretty impossible. And, we had 2 singers, not 1. So that's already, 5 people on stage. If you only have 1 guitar, then you've got 2 guitars, which we like the sound of 2 guitars. And so at that point, there's 6 band members. It's kind of impossible to tour with 9 people when you're not making any money. I mean, we weren't doing well at all at that point. So that's one reason. We broke up for a while and got back together, and it was just, impossibly hard to coordinate that many people at that time. It sort of happened naturally, where we had 1 horn players for a while or 2, and then it just was like easier just to try it. I think maybe someone flaked on a show and then we just did it without a horn, or I don't know, who knows, I can't remember that. But it was sort of a natural transition and shift, but at the same time, we kind of decided that we liked a kind of poppier sound at that point that wasn't necessarily so trad. And, we were listening to a lot of punk and a lot of other music that didn't really have that, that much of a horn section. So we were all enjoying kind of that shift anyway.
At the time, I remember thinking, because Lockjaw was when I kind of stopped in my tracks and went, oh shit, Like this is really special music. It always felt kind of tragic that No Doubt sold a gajillion records and Dancehall Crashers didn't meet with that same level of success.
Oh, well, thanks.
I mean, you had that album. Look, we've talked about musical antidepressants on our show before. I can mainline the song Go and just bounce around the room. Like it is instant happiness for me. I'm dancing like a fool.
We had a shitty label, to be honest. I think that No Doubt is, I mean, Gwen's just, you know, she's fucking amazing. Like she's always been like that. Like we used to play with them, you know, for so many years. Elise grew up in Anaheim, so she's buddies with them, and you know, I think she was always going to be a star. That was like no question, right? And but I mean, otherwise, I don't know. Maybe we didn't have the whatever we have our many reasons. I think one of them being kind of a shitty label. MCA was not. They didn't really totally get us, I don't think. And
I don't think they got a lot of people that were on there.
Exactly. No, they were just a shitty label. They were shitty.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we joined on to MCA through 510 and they got us, you know, Jeff and Elliot got us. So that was why we did that, because that's what we thought we were going to be dealing with. And then that shifted. So we were into just being on a major and they just didn't get it. And also they had like, you know, all kinds of industry bullshit, which happens, which is like the entire label got fired right after our record came out. And so then nobody gives a shit, right? Nobody's like, the A&R people are gone that worked on your record and they want to like make money off the next record. And so then we're just kind of like left hanging. And then that happened a second time. So it happened with both of our albums when they came out. So major shifts in the industry right when we were putting out records. So there were things like that, you know, I don't know, probably didn't help us, you know. So.
No.
Yeah, because Go, Don't Want to Behave, Good for Nothing. Like there's probably 4 radio singles.
My songs. Yes.
Yeah. Right. All of those songs are lead single material. And if you only got one push, it's kind of tragic. And then the same thing with Honey, I'm Homely. Like you've probably got 3, maybe 4 songs deep on that you could have pushed and had, you know, real radio behind. And it just bad luck, bad timing.
I mean, I think that was a lot of it. I really do. It's a strange time in the industry. People, you know, were getting, I mean, Weezer got dropped, I think. It was like everybody was getting like dropped and like, you know, it was like everybody was getting signed for a second and then everybody was getting dropped. It was just kind of this weird window of about 8 years where everything was shifting a lot. So I think that's a big part of it. I don't know. We also refused to do some really annoying things that we just didn't agree with, you know, like.
Do tell.
Well, I mean, like the labels often were pushing that you do a cover song for your first hit. And we just didn't want to do that. So it was like, you know, put out a cover of whatever, pick some 80s song. And then like, that's going to be your introduction into the radio world. And, you know, at that point you'll be able to follow it up with an original song. And we kind of weren't into that. So there was a couple things like that, you know, like just some choices that we decided we didn't want to make. And we didn't want to be sort of pushed into sort of like one-hit wonder zone, which a few things were sort of suggested that we felt were going to do that for us. We would rather have tried to keep some kind of longevity, you know? And the industry's just, you know, funny like that, you know, and it's also when you're a woman in a band at that point, especially, but they really were confused. Like, I mean, even just the fact that I'm just a girl was sort of like, I feel like I've had lots of discussions with, because I was in another band that got signed that was all girls, and they just didn't get it. You know, they really didn't get it. They were like, well, you need to write more songs that are marketable towards men. And I was like, you know, I think we're doing okay with it. You know, I had this pretty feminist lyrics and stuff like that. And I was like, no, we have a lot of people that are really interested in what we're saying. At that time, it was, you know, somehow just the people didn't understand like women. And then it became this whole thing, women in rock. It's like, well, you see, maybe we do have something to say that people are interested in and women are interested in. And it doesn't have to be like, you know, toned down and like made, you know, into this like fluffy song that everyone's going to just somehow relate to. Like, you got to relate to everybody, that kind of shit. So instead of just writing what you want to write, you know, and a lot of our lyrics for dancehall are pretty sarcastic, you know, and have a sort of biting, you know, kind of dark tone a little bit lyrically. So I don't know, things like that might have influenced them, but you know, I think the shift in the industry was happening. That was happening during our releases. So
try using the fine adjustment knob and do it more slowly. You're likely to miss the cells you're looking for, even though they may be there.
Having never been involved in the industry to that extent, it almost sounds like a shitty relationship. I love you. We'll sign you. You're perfect. Now change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you signed us because you liked us for doing this.
Yeah, we had like this one A&R guy that came in was like, this song is good, but you have to change the guitar solo. You just have to. I remember this specifically. I thought it was so hilarious, just because he wanted to have like a say, you know, on the record, like he had his like production credit or something. Mm. And so we were like, okay, we'll change it. And he comes back like an hour later. And we're like, okay, we change it. He's like, oh my God, so much better. Totally didn't change a thing, you know, stuff like that. You know, just kind of just bullshit. Like they didn't know what they were listening to. They weren't really sure how to deal with it. I think that's, you know, it's, you know, we fall into the same category as a lot of bands in that position. But, you know, there were things that we weren't going to do. And then, you know, the ska thing was kind of blowing up, and I think they really wanted us to kind of push that angle a lot, and we just didn't want to sound like that anymore. We weren't interested in that really sort of 90s ska sound to that level. We wanted to do it our way. We had two vocals, which meant that there's so much going on already harmony wise, and like, you know, the melody lines are like moving around so much. So it's like adding horns, it just felt like, no, we want some space. We want some space from the vocal to the guitar. We don't want this like constant, you know, harmony sound. So we had our opinions too.
Sure. And I feel like when the horns dropped out of the band, the guitar work picked up. I mean, there was a demonstrable improvement in overall tone and mix. I mean, you could hear it. It seemed very intentional. Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, I mean, you know, Op Ivy, there's a lot of bands that didn't have horns or had very little horns. So, you know, it was the fact that we were kind of getting kind of harassed about it, the Clash, you know. I mean, there's people that did ska-punk that were not, you know, in that trad sound. So, yeah, we got a little shit for it, but we were also playing a lot of shows, you know, early days, we were playing a lot of shows with a lot of fights. So the skinhead scene, the mod scene, it was like constant fights in the front row. And once we shifted away and got more into the punk scene, it was actually less of that. So there were a bunch of reasons that we kind of shifted, you know, into a slightly different place. Yeah, gnarly farts, really brutal.
Was that a regional thing or was that countrywide?
I don't know if it was totally countrywide. It was definitely happening in San Francisco and definitely happening in LA. So, I mean, all of California which is where we were playing mostly at that point of time. Like, we didn't go on tour till, I mean, probably the early 90s was our first tour with Hepcat. We did something with King Apparatus. And that was okay. There weren't that many fights anymore at that point. But you know, in the early days, there were a lot. It was like, you know, on the dance floor, everyone's like getting into it. It was gnarly. I mean, you know, I know NoFX talks about it a lot with like the punk scene in LA, which I didn't experience. Having grown up in England and then moving to you know, NorCal, but that's just kind of how it was. And whatever you could do at that point to kind of mellow that out a little bit was also something we were concerned with. So
it seemed like Dance Hall Crashers had a strange ebb and flow in popularity where, you know, the demand, like you said, you broke up for a while, you reunited. You know, anytime a band has enough of a resurgence that you reissue an older release as the old record, you know, there's something happening there. There's something like this, almost a late acknowledgement that, like I said, this is special music and we need to lift this up. Mm-hmm. Did that make the ride any wilder?
No, I think we just appreciated it more. I mean, we loved it when we started out, but there were a lot of, you know, band dramas, people quit. And like I said, we've had probably, I don't know, someone was going to do a family tree, a friend of ours who was in the band. We should have follow up on that, do a full family Dance Hall Crasher tree, because it's just ridiculous. I think there's like 50 people that came in and out of the band. So we had a lot of, you know, band dramas, people fighting or people leaving or whatever. Some of it was amicable. People just, you know, were in college at UC Berkeley and then left or whatever it was. But, you know, there was some not so fun, pleasant moments. But we, you know, we put that record out on Moonska. He told us that we weren't selling any albums, but we started getting all this fan mail. And so we're like, well, why don't we just do a reunion show then? Because we feel kind of bad, like we're not together anymore. And we put the band back together with most of the, I think it was all original members that had been playing previously, and including Jamie McCormick, who's a fantastic guitar player who I love, good friend of ours still. And we sold out, and it was just a shock, you know, like we had suddenly had this big fan base that we hadn't had pre-release of the albums. The album just really kind of, you know, I think we appreciated at that point, like, oh, well, maybe we do want to continue this. Maybe there's something to be said for this album that we thought hadn't sold anything or no one had responded to, but actually, you know, people were listening to it. And obviously, you know, ska and the punk scene is a small scene. People were going to the record store and they'd buy every ska record you could get that was new. And so you kind of get into this niche thing, right? So people were buying our album. We just didn't know it at the time. So no, I think we appreciated it more. It was fun.
It seems like a lot of artists that we talked to that had some modest success in the late 90s, early 2000s, it seems like that was a difficult hump to overcome, like the sort of dissolution of the traditional radio model and the record labels kind of falling apart at the seams. Like it's difficult to make ends meet. And a lot of artists kind of petered out, lost some creative energy in the early 2000s. And then it seems like a lot of them started making music again, maybe 2008, 2009, which happens to coincide with some of your early solo releases.
Yeah.
How long was it in between Dance Hall Crashers and you sitting down and saying, I'm going to record my own music and I'm going to do my own thing and satisfy myself?
Good question. So I think that, I mean, I've always done other music at the same time as Dance Hall Crashers. Like I was in another group called Jezebel that got signed 2 or 3 months. I think it was actually before I signed the Dance Hall Crasher. I signed to 2 major labels like within a 3-month period, which is like, you know, you have to sign that you're like completely committed to that one label. And then I was like, I'm doing this again to a different label. We'll figure this out. But you know, in true fashion, one of them kind of didn't work out in the end for me. But I was always doing other music, and you know, like I said, I mean, I'd listen to jazz and other music a lot all the time. I listened to a lot of doo-wop. I listened to a lot of, you know, old reggae and rocksteady, and I listened to tons of new wave and things that were kind of around the punk scene, but maybe, you know, a little different, Motown. And I took a couple years to figure it out. I would say I was doing a lot of other music. Like I was in another band right after that called Star Nova, which some of the band members became my solo group as well. 3 of us or 4 of us continued on. And yeah, I really thought about it. I think I had a moment of like, what am I going to do now that Dancehall Crashers is done? And I wanted it to be done. I was one of the people that wanted to be kind of done with it for a while. And I think I just decided like, well, am I not going to do music anymore? And then I thought about it for like 3 seconds and I was like, well, no, that's not an option. So if it's not an option, then I have to put all my energy into doing music. Like if it's like one or the other, and I'm not going to give up on music, that's for sure. Therefore, I may as well put all my energy into it. So it really was a very clear decision. And then I was sort of, you know, enjoying the challenge of like, okay, I've always sung in harmonies. Of course I do on my album anyway, but I want to write songs that like are my vision, my completion. Someone else is not going to be able to say, they don't like that part or whatever. But also just to see like if I could do it, you know, because I love collaborating. I really do. It's to me, it's super fun. It's a big part of it, right? Playing music and writing music is collaboration, because that's always the best. But I wanted to see what it would be like if I sent my vision through to the end, and also, you know, what my voice would sound like alone without tons of harmony, where I'm singing lead all the way through, and just things like that, just to see what it felt like. So yeah, I mean, I knew a lot of musicians in the Bay Area because I've been doing music the whole time. Like I said, I was in a lot of bands on and off, so it wasn't that hard to put together.
What did you learn about yourself once you realized that you were the only voice?
Oh, just band leading kind of sucks, but besides.
Fair enough.
No, I mean, it's just hard. It's a little bit hard, but it's not, I mean, it was also fantastic. I mean, mostly great. I'm actually about to do a show of that band in 2 weeks, which I haven't done in about 6 years. So I took a little break when I was in this other band I'm touring with. Not intentionally timed with that, but it just happened that way. And yeah, I mean, it's what's hard is that because I'm not fitting into a scene with that music, I'm not writing a punk record, I'm not writing a ska record, I'm not writing a pop record that's solely pop. Just kind of blending all my influences is a bit confusing for some people, especially for record labels that want to put you in a little box, you know. So that's been a little hard, but I knew that going in. I also feel like I've always known that, like when we were on MCA, it was like, well, I could try to do a solo career and go real pop, you know, and, you know, I kind of just didn't really want that, I guess. I mean, I do love some of that music. It's not that I love pop music. It can be great, but I just didn't want, like, actually, even just once the internet started getting weird, you know, and people were writing shit about each other on the internet, like in the very early days. You know, you guys are old enough to know what that's about, but not
yes.
That might be listening.
I've been in an AOL chat room, Karina.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was just weird. Like, you know, I remember being on tour and like somebody freaking out that somebody had thought I was, you know, having an affair with someone we were touring with, you know, just like kind of bullshit. And we were like, what the hell? You know, what's going on? And I think just between that and the pressures of what, you know, it started becoming this whole like the pop music world was like Britney Spears and crap like that at the time. And I was like, I'm not going to fucking do anything like that. So not that I would have had to, but it felt more limited. Like, I think there's so many amazing musical artists, especially women now that are doing well, that get to be themselves. And there was a window of time when that was still really difficult to do on like a major or something like that. It was like, you can't be overweight and you can't be this and you can't be, you know, it was kind of, you know, under this sort of like umbrella of like women in rock, you still had to, you know, be wearing a bikini on stage. So I was like, I'm not going to fucking do that. I want to be respected as a musician. It's what I love to do is, you know, I'm a real musician. I went to school for it. It's what I like to do. I'm interested in exploring as much as I can about it because I love it and because I love singing and I love what the voice can do. I'm really interested in the sort of process of what a voice can do. So I like experimental singers, you know. So it's like I just wasn't interested in that.
All right, then let me ask you this: where do you land on Yoko Ono? Speaking of experimental singers, or singers as a finger.
Well, I mean, vocally, she's can be hard to listen to, but I think she's a brilliant artist, and I think she's really inspiring.
I agree firmly with both of those statements. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm surrounded by Yoko apologists. Oh no.
Why?
Oh, no pun intended.
Ooh.
Yeah.
No, I'm not an apologist. I find her insufferable musically, but as an artist, I certainly respect her art.
Yeah, she's difficult.
You watch the Beatles documentary and you see where she inserted herself in that group, and you go, I wish maybe not.
That's not all her. That's John Lennon too. He wanted her there.
Sure.
He wanted her there, and also Paul's a dick. I love Paul, but he's a fucking dick. And you know, and they're all fucking high as a kite, and John's like fucking higher on heroin. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, he wants his girlfriend there, you know. Like, you can't just blame that on her for at all.
And at least from what I saw in the documentary, I didn't see her interfering. She was just kind of there.
Yeah.
You know.
It's edited in a way that it suggests that she did, but that we'll take that up with Peter Jackson.
And also,
Yes.
yeah. And also, John's a dick. He was a fucking dick. He's like my fucking hero, but he's an asshole.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So like, they're not. You know, there's more complex situations going on, I think.
I wonder if you can take us. So I mentioned your solo work. There's an album called Under Glass that features a song. Please correct me if I say this wrong. Yeah. Musée Mécanique.
Yes, that's right.
It was released on Under Glass, but also was included in a Fat Records compilation that maybe pushed it to an audience that it wouldn't have normally found. Tell me about that song.
That's actually the first song that I wrote when I was starting to write my solo record, because I got this cool organ, which I would show you because it's usually sitting right here, but it's in the other room. So I got this really fun, cool organ that I borrowed from my friend James, who's in the band, called a chord organ, and actually Daniel Johnson uses it a lot. So it's a funny little organ. It's almost like an accordion that's laid out flat, essentially, because it's got chord buttons and it's got a little keyboard on the other side. And I was just playing on it and started writing that song. And it's about, Musée Mécanique is about several things, but it's the name of it comes from a San Francisco kind of arcade that has all these old, beautiful, like arcades from the 20s and the 30s, and like these vintage, you know, beautiful, just all kinds of random things, you know, like funny scenes that you can like play with, you know, penny, like nickel slot random like machines that are from the 20s, 30s, and 40s, and they're all antique and gorgeous. And it's by the beach, and it's now unfortunately moved somewhere else. But that's what the song is about a little bit. It's inspired by that, and that's what was the sound of that organ. Kind of had this kind of sea shanty feel to it. So, but it's about more things, that song, than that. But that's where the inspiration came from.
There's a little bit of Doctor Who vibe, and I don't mean that in a sci-fi way. I mean, you seem to slip back and forth between eras very easily. I would call it a skill of yours.
Well, thank you. I love Doctor Who, so great. I do. I mean, it's so funny. That song, the theme song is one of the best songs ever written, and it's written by a brilliant woman, mostly. I love a lot of different eras. I sing a lot of the 20s and 30s music now, still with a different group I'm in. I don't know. I think, as a singer, sometimes what you're doing is you're just copying, your favorite artists, right? You're copying Aretha, you're copying Tina Turner, you're copying Toots, Higgins, you're copying, Terry Hall, whatever, so that you're kind of just absorbing and reproducing, like you're trying to sound like those people, or at least I was always. I love being able to shift in and out of that as much as I can. I hope I do it well, but I know I'm trying. I mean, I don't really have like a classic punk rocker voice, I don't sound like Joan Jett or Stacey D, who's got this super raspy voice. I love that voice, but I just don't have it. So I do what I can with what I do, as much as I can. It's like the moment that I realize, I'm never going to sound like Janis Joplin or Joan Jett. I just don't have that. That's not my voice. But I love singing high notes, and a lot of people don't. I'm going to sing as much across the board as I can in every direction that I like personally.
How many bands are you in?
That's a good question. I believe it's like 6 at the moment.
Far more than I would have. Wow, good for you.
Some don't do that much, so yeah. I'm in NoFX.
Okay.
I'm in NoFX. I'm in my band, which hasn't done much recently, but I'm kind of working back into that again. I'm in a band called the Red Room Orchestra, which does really fun, mostly tribute stuff, but not like we'll do entire soundtracks. Most of the time we do Twin Peaks. That's how it started out. We do the entire Twin Peaks kind of repertoire, which, includes stuff from like other David Lynch movies. And we do a lot of things with SF Sketchfest, which is a big comedy show here. And we just did Netflix as a Joke with Seth Rogen in LA last year. And so we'll do these big fun things where we did like the entire Seinfeld soundtrack, which is really funny.
Oh, wow.
And we'll sort of take it to new places and do weird arrangements. We've done a lot of other, we did Repo Man with Alex Cox.
Oh, wow.
And Xander Schloss. Like there's some great, guests that like as many people from the actually original series. Like with the Twin Peaks series, we had some phenomenal guests like from the original series there. So we they're not real tributes. They'll be like full soundtrack nights. And then I'm in another group called the Cottontails, which is a mostly swing and jazz group, and another group called the Bluebells, and another group called the Casuals, and then a million other projects. But yeah, my band is coming back, and I'm doing more with that again. So, and I've got other little things in mind, but that I can't talk about until.
You're not going to tease it?
No, because it's a little too early days. Like once it's actually somewhere I'm happy with, like talking about, I will. Yeah.
All right. Is the Bluebell still Mr. Lonesome and the Bluebells for anyone that wants to look it up?
But yeah, that's what we're under. That's our name is under that. But it is, yeah. But
too much of a little bit is an incredible song.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're all old doo-wop songs that we just reconstructed into 2 voice parts, and it's really fun to sing that one.
Well, I'm a disappointed gal. I thought it was tough. I took a little bit of a drink, but then a bit was too much. I've had too much of a little bit. It's about to get me down. Too much of a little bit. It's about to get me down. Well, I can't eat right. No, I can't sleep right. No, I can't think, I can't drink, I can't talk right. No, I've had too much of a little bit. It's about to get me down. Too much of a little bit. It's about to get me down. Well, run to me, honey, baby. Put your hand on my head. My temperature's 3,000 and I'm almost dead. I've had too much of a little bit. It's about to get me down. Too much of a little bit. It's about to get me down.
The reason I even started that band was because I was like, well, I'm writing all this music, but it's all fucking depressing. Like, it's like, oh, another goddamn, whiny heartbreak song or something that I had written, whatever, at the time. And I was like, I'm just kind of bumming myself out, like, let's like have something fun to sing.
It takes experience, knowledge, determination, and insight to overcome fears that are not rational. But it can be done.
If anyone is listening to this that does not know who Tony Sly is, your rendition of Biggest Lie is so beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Tell folks who Tony Sly was.
Tony Sly is a phenomenal songwriter and was in No Use for a Name. We were label mates and friends and tour mates. We did a lot of touring with them. Dance Hall Crashers did a bunch of tours with No Use, and most of them lived locally. So we would hang out all the time at parties, and we were on the same label and we were good buddies. And then he ended up doing a solo album, 2 solo albums that I sang on. So that was a huge honor, and just dear friend, super funny, just lovely person. I can't say enough wonderful things about him. And I'm good friends with his wife and his kids. And Fat Mike was doing a tribute after he passed, and asked, his whole theory, his whole concept was that, you know, because I was doing my solo material, so he'd seen this kind of more acoustic stuff that I was doing. It's not super acoustic, but it's more loungy, or whatever he wanted to call it. I think he was calling it loungy or something. But his whole concept was he wanted people to pick, like punk bands, to pick an acoustic song that Tony had written and do, you know, kind of basically flip it around. So he asked me to do a cover, and I love that song, Always, The Biggest Lie. And I always just thought it was actually really sad. And, you know, there's a lot of emotion in it, even though it's, you know, sort of a slightly politically sort of commentary, has other things that are not necessarily sad, but it kind of made me, you know, brought that up for me. And so I did a cover of it that was more, you know, broken down with organs and vibraphone and stand-up bass and a bunch of vocals. And it actually took ages to get it right. That song was one of those kind of just, it took so long to get it where I wanted. It was like, not there, not there, not there, not there. Me and the engineer, Josh Garcia, have worked on it for ages. I was like, sorry, I'm going to come back in for another session because I'm just not happy with it yet. And I felt kind of bad about it. I was like, sorry, this is taking way longer than I would have thought. But then I finally felt like it was done. And so it was a bit of a painstaking one to get right for me. But I knew once I did get it to where it is now, that it was the right thing to do. It was a hard one to do for some reason. I think in part just because you're making this fast, heavy song slow, and how do you do it right? And, you know, I'm thinking of Tony a little bit too, like, what is he going to want? Would he appreciate some weird version of this done this way or not this way, which is a little, you can't guess what someone's going to like or not, but I know he's a big Beach Boys fan, and there were a lot of things that I know he liked that other people didn't know about, Billy Bragg, and who I'm all big fans of too. So yeah, so I worked on it a lot. That one was a lot of work.
It's gorgeous.
But thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, I that's one of my favorite tunes you've been involved with.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was, yeah. And then Mike was like, he loved it, and Aaron loved it, and everybody was like calling me once they heard it from the label, and I was like, I'm crying. And Mike's like, look, we've got huge bands on this record. I mean, there was a lot of people. It was like 50 bands or something. I can't remember. And he's like, but I'm going to put your song first. And he's like, it's a huge honor. Like, you have to understand, this is a really big deal. Like, you're like just you by yourself. And like, yeah, so that was really sweet.
Yeah.
But I think he wanted it just to kind of like get everybody a little bit, like, get the tears going, get the waterworks.
Mission accomplished.
Yes.
I wonder if you would agree with this assessment. It's because the number of credits that you have on albums. I mean, you're credited on several of the NoFX records. You performed on a couple of the No Use records. You're credited on a Mighty Mighty Boss Tones record. So just last year, you partnered with Mike Park on something that was called, what was it called? The Wave, what is it? I get it here. Wavebreaker. The Wavebreaker EP. You did a song called Wade Out Through the Night.
Yeah.
It also is amazing, like super, like put on lots of playlists that I recommend. Like, you know, back in the day, if I were still handing out cassettes to people, it would be on all my cassettes.
Thank you. That was really fun too. He asked me to do it. We're old friends. Like we used to play together. Again, early days of Dancer Crashers was we played with Skank and Pickle a lot, and we were good buddies with them. And I mean, I think there's some funny flyers of just like them, us, and No Doubt. You know, it's like, and he asked me to, you know, he's got his labels doing Gray Asian Man Records, and he asked me to do this fun EP split. thing that he's been working on. And he sent me the track, and then I kind of went crazy on vocals. So I was like, well, I added a lot of harmonies. I was like, if you hate it, please tell me. I will, I was like, so yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. I kind of went a bit bananas on it, and he approved. So that was good.
How does Karina get in No Effects? Like, I mean, other than just like being in the orbit of Fat Mike and kind of knowing those cats, like, it doesn't seem like a musical fit.
Well, I had been working with, Mike was living in San Francisco most of the, until recently, well, till about 8 years ago, I would say. And he had Motor Studios, and I would go over there and sing backups for all kinds of people and do, the Tony Sly song. And I used it for a bit, recording some of my album briefly. And then he was writing this musical, Home Street Home, which has been kind of an ongoing process. But I was demoing all of the vocal parts for that for him for ages. So I didn't end up on a bunch of the recordings, like they re-recorded stuff, but me and Stacey D and Billy Bouchard and Spike were the main kind of vocalists that he was kind of trying all his ideas out with, and I can, we get along really well. We're really good friends, but also he can tell me, like, sing this thing, and I'll go, do you mean, da, 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 da. Where most people are like, what the fuck are you singing? And so we had a really good rapport, and then he'd be like, yeah, but they're just gonna do some other stuff with it. And I'm like, well, what kind of stuff? And he's like, some kind of jazzy, or some kind of bluesy, or something kind of like, now do the, Brooklyn accent, or like, he just had all these, like, trying all his crazy ideas out. And then, he's very specific. So he'll be like, okay, well, then the third note, sing a different note, like, and, just, but the third note, sing something different. So he's very, like, detailed. And we just got along great, and I could understand his wacky way of producing and asking for ideas to be done differently. So anyway, we've been doing that a lot, and I know Limo really well, who was playing keyboards for them for years. I also toured with them a lot. Dancehall toured with No Effects a lot. We were on their label. We were really good friends. We hung out and partied all the time. So in San Francisco, so we just knew each other well, and he had just put my song out on the Tony Sly thing. He'd seen my band a bunch of times. He knows what I can do, or, what I can play. Sometimes I helped him with keyboard parts on his musical as well, like working out chord progressions or something like that. And he just said, he actually called me really late at night one time. And he was there with his lady at that time. And he was like, oh my God, Karina, Limo's leaving the band, and someone just said, like, I should get you in the band. And he's like, this is genius. You should do it. And I was like, well, I'm not a great keyboard player. And he's like, they're not hard parts, like, just practice. And so that's how it happened. I get along with each individual member really well, like, have a good connection with all of them. Like, we go out to dinner when we're on tour, like maybe just one-on-one and hang out or whatever. Me and Hefe have all, like, funny vocal goof offs, like me and Smelly go out and get some dinner. Me and Mel have, like, our, like, fun things that we, like, talk about, and I'm really good friends with Mike, and then all the crew, I toured with them, Kent, and toured with Dancehall Crashers for years. So we're all just, like, friends, and I think it just works. I don't get offended. I'm not annoyed. It's their band. I'm stoked to just be there, and I don't also have to be in any of the dramas. So it's easy for me. It's harder for them.
Is that you singing the female vocal in Laurie Myers every night?
On the floor at the factory where
it is, but not on, obviously not on the record.
Right. But live.
Yeah, but, live, I do it. Yeah. But also sometimes people are just there that want to do it, like Stacey D or somebody else, and then they do it.
So I'm gonna
so she's got the rasp. So
I'm gonna take you to task on something you said earlier. You're like, I don't have that Joan Jett vibe. You got to have a little bit of Joan Jett to pull that song off.
Yeah, I can do a little fake of it, but it's not my natural voice. It's not. It's like I can. I do a lot of growly stuff, and I sing a fair amount of like Ruth Brown, who's a great R&B 50s singer who does, I'm not gonna do it this minute, but kind of get that raspy, wow, get like a little raspy thing on there, which I picked the wrong note to do that on, but I can do some of that stuff, and I can sing some of that raspy punk rock stuff, but I can't. It's just not my natural voice to do it.
Yeah.
The whole time. So I have fun with it.
So to go from haunting 30 seaside shanties and 60 girl group harmonies to singing Lori Meyer with no effects on stage, you've got so much range. It's almost mind-blowing.
Oh, thanks.
You are a singular talent and so much music that I continually come back to as a source of happiness. So thank you for everything you've done, the whole career. I really love just about everything that you've done. So
wow, thank you so much.
With that, we will let you go.
Okay.
Thanks, Karina.
Have a good one.
Karina,
all right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Many thanks to Karina for stopping by to chat with us. Be sure to check out the show notes for all the links to her work.
This episode of Abandoned Albums was written and produced by Keith R. Higgins and Jeff Calhoun. The show was recorded at Thunder Love Studios, where it was engineered by
Daphne Miller,
with help from
John Thomas.
Abandoned Albums was edited by
Mike Hunt. The songs you heard during this podcast were Dance Crasher by Alton Ellis, Go by the Dancehall Crashers, Musée Mécanique by Karina, Too Much of a Little Bit by Mr. Lonesome and the Bluebells, Biggest Lie written by Tony Sly and sung by Karina, and Lori Myers by NoFX. You can stream all of Karina's work wherever you stream your favorite music. To make things easier, we've included links in the show notes section. Please remember to support independent artists. It matters.
Original music by Mike Pellegrino.
Our theme song is All I Want by Pete Belasco. In the opening of the show, the songs you heard were Livin' in a Dream by Archangels, Think Too Hard by Sid Straw, and Stronger Than Love by James Carr.
If you like what you've heard, please be sure to subscribe and leave us a rating. It really does help. Thanks for listening.
Grazie. Daily Leaf. Rob Janicki. Mike Pellegrino. Thurina Vella. Ronnie Barnett. S.W. Loudon. Michael Janicki. Peyton Janicki. And our executive producer,
Rufus Thunderwolf.
Abandoned Albums receives funding from Kramerica Industries. Protect what you value. Kramerica Industries, made in America by Americans, mostly, and headquartered in America. Kramerica.com.
And now, until we meet again next time, I remain as always, obediently yours.
Abandoned Albums is a production of Paw Print Media.